You love a good story, your own most of all. You've crafted the narrative of where you came from, and what you survived, and who you are, and what you stand for, telling it on dates and in interviews and at parties and in captions. I'm the person who overcame. I'm the one who left. I'm not the kind of person who does that. And your story gives you coherence and identity and a sense of control. But here's the paradox that will make you want to burn the script and never tell another anecdote. The more tightly you hold on to your story, the less able you are to grow, because stories demand consistency, and real humans are inconsistent. You were one thing at 20, and another at 30, and another at 40. But your story wants a through line, so you edit out the contradictions and smooth over the mess until you're presenting a clean, believable arc that isn't you, it's a character. And you're trapped inside that character, afraid to do anything that would contradict the plot, unable to change careers or beliefs or apologize because it would break the narrative of who you've been. So you're not living, you're performing a script you wrote years ago based on a person who no longer exists. And the data hides in plain sight. People with highly coherent, unchanging life narratives actually reporting lower well-being and less adaptability than those with more fragmented, evolving self-stories. The coherent storytellers more prone to depression when life contradicts their plot, while the fragmented ones revise and adapt and move on. So the story isn't protecting you, it's making you brittle, and the neuroscience is straightforward. Your hippocampus links memories into a causal chain automatically, but when you cling to that narrative as truth, your prefrontal cortex locks in and stops updating. New information that contradicts your story gets rejected. You become your own propagandist, revising reality to fit the plot, and the result isn't sanity but rigidity. The American twist being that we've turned storytelling into a market, told to find our brand and origin story and authentic voice. LinkedIn coaches and dating experts teaching us to craft a narrative, confusing a useful tool with an unbreakable contract, while the most free people are the ones who know when to throw the story away and start a new chapter with no explanation, changing their minds publicly and abandoning careers and switching parties and apologizing and looking inconsistent, even hypocritical, but they are free. And the quiet reversal that only lands when you're willing to let the old plot twist is that the most resilient and genuinely authentic Americans are not the coherent narrators. They're the ones who hold their story lightly, understanding the past is not a prophecy, revising their memoirs constantly, not from lying, but from growing, saying, I used to believe that without shame and I was wrong, without their identity crumbling, discovering the only story worth telling is the one you haven't written yet. And I need to tell you about Priya, who had a powerful story of immigrant daughter and first graduate and corporate glass ceiling breaker, telling it at every keynote and dinner party until she burned out and wanted to open a tiny bakery and live quietly, but her story wouldn't let her. I'm not a quitter. That's not my narrative. What would people think? So she stayed and got sicker and collapsed, and in recovery told her therapist, I feel like I'm betraying my own character. And the therapist said, you are not a character. You are a human. Characters have arcs, but humans have confusion. You can be the immigrant daughter and the baker. You don't have to choose one story. You can have two chapters. So Priya quit and opened the bakery and lost some followers and gained some peace, still telling the old story sometimes, but adding a new ending. And then I realized I didn't have to keep climbing. I could stop. And that was the hardest climb of all. Her story messier and truer. And the American cognitive paradox sits right here. We worship narrative coherence. But coherence is the enemy of change. The only escape is to treat your life as a rough draft, not a published novel, revising constantly and leaving loose ends and killing your darlings. Understanding the most honest story is, I don't know who I am yet, and that's exactly who I am. And right now, your brain wants to defend your story as true, and it is true of the past, but the past is not the future. Your story explains how you got here, but it doesn't constrain where you can go unless you let it. So if the impulse just sparked to send this to someone trapped in a narrative of victimhood or heroism that no longer serves them, that's not about me. It's the recognition that they're allowed to change the plot And the first real chapter you've written in years might be doing something today that your old story would have forbidden. And the question from the beginning, why do our stories become our prisons, has an answer that only a second viewing fully reveals. You are not character, you are the author, and the author can always write a new page. So now go do something that contradicts your own narrative. That's an order.